Good day, Chairman.
Good day.
Hello.
I welcome you to another beautiful day in Tone Town as we make our way further toward the kingdom of tone. Analog Man hasn't come out with that pedal yet. I think we can still say it, but we're getting there. Each royal position is slowly being absorbed. But what can we say? It's a great pedal. King of Tone, Prince of Tone, Duke of Tone. They all sound good.
Queen.
There hasn't been a queen yet, so there could be a more feminine version of
Duchess.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pedals yet to be made.
There are, and I think in keeping with the spirit of pedals that have been made or yet to be made or continue to be made or will be made again, the big news that you may have heard as we sort of got to the end of the year of 2022 and transitioned into 2023, some of you who are pedal fanatics or people that are kind of following the news saw that firstly that Diamond Pedals, who has been a long-standing guitar pedal company, at least since I've sort of been around in the industry, certainly has been around before me, has been one of the kind of the more senior boutique pedal companies out there, and they had gone out of business or had discontinued making pedals. I'm not sure the conditions or the reasons why. But thankfully, Solid Gold Effects has acquired them in some way. And again, I don't know the details of how that was done or whether, there was a buyout or whatever it may be. I can only speculate. Maybe some people have some more information about that subsequently, but they are to re-release the Diamond pedals again. Now, I think that this gets into a larger conversation around the topic today. And I think it's an interesting one, which is seemingly from the outside, Diamond pedals did everything right. They had a lot of really, really popular pedals. And if I had to use the Wayback Machine, which is a way to look back at websites at a past date and time. And if you're watching on a more enriched experience on YouTube, because we also stream this on YouTube every week, in addition to having it as a audio only podcast. If you were to look at my screen at this moment, and this is, I think, from a couple of months ago, or maybe right before the year changed, you can see that they have a lot of pedals that were very, very popular in their time. And I'm thinking about things like the Halo Chorus, the Diamond Tremolo. I know many people still use that. The Memory Lane Junior, and also obviously the original Memory Lane. There's a couple of different colors and versions. And of course, the Diamond Compressor is a really popular one. The Vibrato. They had a lot of pedals that were sort of top of their class in what it is that they did, especially with the compressor at the time, and the Memory Lane is kind of a really in-depth delay pedal. And so, you can kind of see some of their offerings here. We'll get maybe deeper into them as we go. But I think the larger question is, you can see a pedal company that's doing everything right, has some hits. I think also when you went to their website back at that time, you would also see that many of the pedals had awards of some kind, whether that be a Premier Gear from Premier Guitar or an editor's pick if it was something from what's a guitar player does that. So popular pedals, well respected by critics, and they go out of business. And I think that this is sort of indicative of a larger conversation where pedal companies can do everything right and they can still not make it. And it makes me think about how many amazing pedal companies are out there at this very moment. How many amazing builders are there out there at this very moment, which we've never heard of. And they just didn't get that break. They didn't get that artist that was using their pedal, or they didn't get that boost on the gear page, or they didn't get the hype that a lot of these other pedals get because they either didn't look the right part, or the maker of it wasn't, really outspoken and energetic, and attracted people to, what it was that they're doing. Because seemingly pedal companies can have great products, as Diamond did, that were critically acclaimed, as Diamond did, that are known by most people in the boutique industry, as Diamond did, and they can still cease to exist. And only by the grace of God and Solid Gold Effects are they going to be back in existence again, which I'm really happy about. So I'd like to maybe separate this into a multi-tiered discussion, which is, how do consumers and people that may be listening to this, how do they ensure the longevity to the degree that it's in their control of the pedal companies that they really like and appreciate, whether that be Diamond pedals, whether that be Goodwood Audio, whatever it may be, whatever the companies are that you like. And what can we do to continue to support them to ensure that this doesn't happen? And maybe what are companies that we think are kind of flying under the radar right now and are not getting maybe the due that they deserve, and that should be in this conversation amongst best pedal companies? And what are our favorite Diamond effects, and what are we looking forward to in these re-releases through Solid Gold Effects of some of these classic Diamond pedals? So maybe we'll start first. Let's start first with our favorite Diamond pedals. I'll bring back up the screen here with our Diamond pedals.
Can I ask a qualifying question for favorite Diamond pedal?
Do it.
Is it allowed for my favorite Diamond pedal to be one that I've never played?
Sure.
I know that's controversial.
Yeah.
But I have to say, my favorite Diamond pedal is definitely the Memory Lane, the full size one.
You've never played a Memory Lane?
Not the full size, not the retired.
Yeah,
I played a Memory Lane, but not the Memory Lane 2, like this one that's like the size of an encyclopedia. That one I have never played, but I have wanted that for probably 15 years. I've wanted that pedal.
To my knowledge, they were never sold door to door. I'll give that, just
as in you have to go through a dealer. Is that what you mean? Oh, the encyclopedia.
Like
I'm not even getting my own jokes, man. I'm just
If it's a little slow, I think it's more of a function of the Wayback Machine, and it has to kind of remember all this stuff. I don't know. Some of the pictures aren't uploading, but I thought maybe we might get an enriched experience around the Memory Lane where we could see all the features. But it is a beautiful pedal, and then of course it was replaced by the smaller version, the Memory Lane Junior.
Yeah.
And man, I always thought about these that they were kind of like and look at, they give you a little signal path diagram here.
That's nice.
I always thought that these were kind of like the closest, or one of the closest you could get to a Memory Man type thing without, obviously investing in a giant Memory Man pedal. And God bless the Memory Man. It's an amazing pedal, but, doggone it, it is a terribly built pedal. and especially the originals. And it has so many quirks, that you really have to be, guys like Analog Man or Mick Davis, the guy that was the designer of the original Memory Man, do mods to kind of undo some of the stuff about the impedances and its headroom and stuff like that to sort of address that in the true bypass. But the Memory Lane really sort of took, I think, some of those best qualities and really fixed a lot of problems, because I think the guy that was the engineer, I think his name was Amish, and he was just, I think he was just a smart designer that took, classic kind of sounds that people were into and just made them really workable and usable and sound great. And this was always a great pedal. I had many different incarnations of the Memory Lane, and I always really liked it.
One I do have experience with from Diamond, a lot more experience, is a compressor, which I know a lot of people listening would as well. And this was my first boutique compressor I ever bought, was the big boy, this full size Diamond compressor, not the mini one. I loved it. It just sounds good. You can't get a bad sound out of it.
No, and you can really use it like a boost too. It's so subtle.
It's definitely me. And it just sounds great.
Yeah, I've had both. I've had both of them, the junior and the larger one. I actually preferred the larger one. I don't know. There was just something about, it's like getting a POG, getting the micro and the nano. Like people say that there's a difference in sound. That's kind of how I felt about the Yeah, see, that's how I felt about like the bigger Diamond. It was a much larger enclosure, but man, did it sound good.
Man, yeah, they're really beautiful. I haven't compared the two. I've only had them separately from each other. I've never had them both at the same time. But I always felt like this is a really beautiful compressor that would get you. You could have it very subtle and almost, again, sort of like a boost if you want it to be that way, or you could have it over the top, and then you had the green LED that would kind of light up with the dynamics and when the compression was happening. There weren't a lot of pedals at the time that did that. As far as kind of showing you the attack, I never knew that they had a custom shop. Did you guys know about this?
No, I didn't.
No, definitely
Where you could get a green memory lane. It almost looks like it has some sort of expander kit with it here that I'm seeing, like almost like when you get, what's that company called? Tonezar. You guys remember Tonezar?
Yeah. We're doing a board with a couple Tonezar pedals on there right now.
Oh, maybe this is like a mixer, maybe. Or maybe they made some sort of custom mixer. Anyway. I thought maybe it was an expansion because on some of the Tonezar stuff, you have, I think he calls it the Angel Baby, where there's like the principal delay, which is also kind of like a Memory Man-ish sort of thing. That's the Echozar. And then there's like an expansion thing, I think that's called the Angel Baby.
Oh, this looks, it's great.
Yeah.
So, sorry, you go Mason.
Ahead. No, please.
I was just going to say, I wonder if Solid Gold will keep the custom shop now that they've kind of taken over, or if it's going to stick to their kind of, legacy line of pedals that they had when they closed down.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing this right, Grant, the memory lane, which you've never played, is one of your favorites, and the one that you have played is the Diamond compressor.
Thank you. You've summed it up very well, Mason.
and Brian, for you, it's the Diamond compressor.
So actually, the Diamond compressor is my second favorite of theirs. My first favorite from there is their tremolo.
Nice.
That guy.
Yeah,
I love that one. So when we found out that they were going out, we had 3 of them at the shop, and I was like, I'll get one. I'll go grab one and put it on a sales order so I can have it because I really liked it. I already had H9 and other stuff on my board, and then the very next day we sold all 3 of them. Dang. So I was just like, I should have done it because people bought them up because of them going out of business, that whole thing, and I'm not gonna go pay $1,000 for one of those now.
Is that how much they go for?
I saw one of them go for around that much, and it was funny as one person had posted like new inbox, never used, and it was like they had just got it from us, but they were turning around and flipping it for like $1,500. This was I'm not sure if it's I don't think it's there anymore. I'm not sure how much they're going for now.
I'm just curious what the standard is.
Well, now you're going to be able to say you own a pre-SGFX Diamond pedal.
Right?
So, I mean, in 10 years, who knows what that's going to be worth.
Listen, if we can find one, they're not bad. Okay, they're not bad.
I think maybe somebody was capitalizing. But no, I agree that these are really great. One of my friends who we've built a rig for on the channel, Benjamin Forehand, he uses one and has used one for years. I mean, the thing about all of their stuff is that it's all analog. So I don't think that they have any digital products at all. The vibrato is also really, really cool. I had a Halo chorus that was really great sounding. I never had tried any of their overdrive stuff, although I know some guys that had some of their bass oriented stuff. I feel like there was some versions that were specifically for bass that they really, really liked. Maybe it was. I don't know. I feel like it was either like a drive or I don't know. Could be mistaken.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, and I just thought that the look was so like clean, and they always had a really beautiful vibe about them. I always just really appreciated the simplicity and just kind of the fit and finish of the pedals. Just a really classic look and great sound, well built. Really love these pedals.
I honestly didn't even know that they had overdrives. Like looking at this list, I didn't know about any of the drives that they actually had. Like, because I've never seen them personally.
I think that because their compressor was so popular and also the memory lane was so popular, I'm sure that those probably outsold most stuff. And then I think the tremolo was still pretty popular too. But I think that certainly the delays in the compressor was here's a bass comp right here. I knew that there was a bass something.
I've never seen Quantum Leap. Like I'd never heard of that.
Yeah, and it says it's a delay. I've never heard of this either. Let's see what the differentiator is. Quantum Leap. And usually it's a toolkit for short delays. The Quantum Leap offers low res delay, flanging chorusing effects, as well as a fixed comb filter. This was an editor's pick at Guitar Player. And again, if we look back at the home page, we're going to let the Wayback Machine just calculate away. I think you'll see that there's just a ton of, like editor's pick, counterpoint. I don't even know. Oh, maybe this is a version of the memory lane, the Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
So a bunch of these had some critically acclaimed. I don't know why the memory lane isn't. I guess this is part of the memory lane, but in any case, before we get into the next part of some of the questions that I'm curious about that I was posing to you, I want to talk about some of the sponsors that make our podcast possible every single week. The first of which are none other than our friends over at the Guitar Sanctuary. And if you're not familiar with the Guitar Sanctuary, it is one of the premier boutique dealerships in all of the country, based in McKinney, Texas. And they sell every imaginable boutique and also kind of big box company amplifiers, guitars, pedals, whether you want to get Vertex, Goodwood audio, or the new Diamond pedals that presumably will be in stock at some point in the near future. These are all things that can be purchased directly at our friends over at the Guitar Sanctuary. They specialize in products like these that, the big box stores like a Guitar Center would never have. And they have amazing service. And not only do they have amazing service, they also house the great Brian Omilion. So if you went to the Guitar Sanctuary, you've acquired all your pedals and you wanted to have them assembled into a beautiful pedal board, Brian will be right there to do it. And not only is Brian amazing at doing that, he also is mixing with the celebs. I don't know if you saw the other week that Brian got a shout out from Seal. That is Kiss from a Rose Seal, not baby seals in the Arctic. So shout out to Brian for getting a shout out from Seal. Seal is an incredible artist, especially his first 3 albums. And his third album, Human Beings, probably his most underrated album if you want to check out some Seal. And Wendy Melvoin played on a lot of those, who has played Purple Rain. So check out Guitar Sanctuary, theguitarsanctuary.com, and you can check out all their offerings, some really great stuff, great service. And again, you can also contact Brian Omilion for a rig build through theguitarsanctuary.com. Secondly, our friends over at Sweetwater have a brand new service that they're offering that is, I think, really unparalleled. It is their gear exchange, which is sort of a combination of Reverb, eBay, and Craigslist. And it has sort of the informalness of Craigslist, where you can talk to people, you can get a hold of a seller, you can ask them about the gear. I would say that there's less of a barrier than there sometimes is on eBay or Reverb. I think the pricing in terms of what people are asking for, I think, is way more down to earth. But not only are those things, which I guess are somewhat intangible, true about this service, but I think beyond that, it just is such a user-friendly way to be able to buy and sell gear. I've been using it quite a bit over the last few months, and I've really loved it. And beyond the fact that I think it's just a great service, really easy to use, and I like more of the peer-to-peer element of it, is that you don't have to eat the seller fees that would normally be associated with some of these other services. so long as you put your earnings on a Sweetwater gift card. And if you're somebody like me that's buying stuff all the time, trying out new things, Sweetwater is an amazing store that has pretty much everything that you could want, whether that's pro audio gear, whether that's guitars, pedals, etc. You can use your earnings without having to take any fees off of it to give to Sweetwater and break off for them. And you can use the entire amount of the stuff that you sold and apply it to other stuff that you'd be buying normally anyway. So I think that that's a really cool thing. Head over to sweetwater.com/used to check out the gear exchange. You can set up an account for free and start buying and selling right away. Again, I've really had a great experience with it, and I really, really like it. So I highly recommend it. And I can't see going back to Reverb after having had such good experiences. And it's, again, very, it's just getting bigger and more users every single week. So it's just going to get better and better as time goes on. So let's go back to Diamond pedals. So we talked a little bit about the different pedals that we like from them. I certainly am in agreement. I'm a big fan of the compressor. I have owned and still own the compressor. And I don't currently own a memory lane, but I've had many of them, and they're always really, really great. I think that the thing that this really sparks for me separately from that is again, from the outside, I don't know the inner workings of what was going on at Diamond Pedals, and certainly it's not unusual that sometimes companies will go out of business out of nowhere. I think historically, like one of the big ones, back in the 90s was like ADA, who was huge at the time. They were one of the industry giants for what they did. I mean, they in terms of the pedal world. They had the classic ADA flanger. They had another pedal that was very popular called the Final Phase. But I think in the rack era, they were also hugely popular. They had, all sorts of preamps and rack gear and delays and choruses and stuff like that, used by all the guys at the time, whether it be Alan Holdsworth or fill in the blank rock star, likely used some piece of their gear. And then, seemingly in the 90s, they went out of business, and they've come to make a somewhat of a resurgence, but never at the level that they were in the 90s. And there's, again, tons of other companies that I think follow suit that are not coming to mind right now, but is certainly not a unique story. And it makes me think, it can be a really hard business to be in, where you can do everything right. You can have revered pedals that are getting, editors' choices from all the leading magazines in our industry, and yet you still have to shut down business. And I'm wondering if maybe for somebody who's not real connected to the pedal business, like, what do you guys think are reasons that stuff like this happens? Because it seems like if, in a perfect world, the companies that are making great stuff, the companies that are well revered, have high quality products, they sound good, they look great. What is it that creates the conditions that precipitates a closure? Now, obviously, we're relieved that Diamond's coming back, but had it not been for Solid Gold Effects, we may just be thinking of all these products as sort of legacy things that once were and never will be again.
You want to go, Grant?
Brian and I are both looking at each other like,
well, I will speak from, like, because you guys both, produce products, pedals, junction boxes, I don't. So, I mean, I've made stuff before, but nothing to the level that you guys do or to Diamond or anything. And it's funny when it's not funny. It's not funny when someone goes out of business or closes shop or anything. But like my first instinct when I heard about it was that sucks, which is the biggest case. But I also thought about it as like, oh man, I hope it wasn't something related to like the pandemic or something that happened that caused a shortage, because nowadays, like, I can't pull it off because it's Velcro down, but like a couple of these companies that like I work with are like, yeah, we're trying to get parts. We're trying to find parts somewhere else. And one of my really close companies that I know was like, this single screen went from $20 to now $65, and we need so many of them. And it's like, I think there's a huge part of like that kind of stuff will play into it. maybe it's not. Maybe he just decided to say, I'm done. I'm going to go retire. That's great. Maybe it would have been done differently. But I think for the subtleness of it and just like it just kind of being done, I was thinking about it. I was like, man, this, he's probably just hanging out on retirement right now, kind of just like doing his own thing. But there's so many aspects that could play into it. But I think a big part could have been something with parts, where you're getting parts from. Like, I mean, that's what I would say.
I think it's a good point as well, Brian, with the part side of things. I remember before making pedals, people would say, like, oh, my costs went up. That screen went up from $20 to $60, let's say. And it's like, oh, $30 isn't that much on a $1,000 controller or a $600 controller, whatever it is. But you have to really think about what that practically means for the company. If you're doing like cost times 3, cost times 4 model, that $40 difference, it really becomes times 3, times 4 on your full retail price. Like, it's significant to the point where it really does affect the bottom line. I think the parts is one thing. I know parts has been tricky for us during the pandemic, sourcing stuff, especially if you do digitally controlled stuff. The microcontrollers and all that are a bit of a nightmare right now. But the other thing, I think from my experience, my limited business experience, is that if you have a company owner or, whoever's running the company, I know Diamond was owned by, was it Poly something?
Yep. Polyblend Incorporated, I think, was what I had read.
Yeah. So if you have a let's see, CEO of Diamond, and they have a lot of vision, they have a lot of things they want to do. It is so easy to stretch yourself a bit too thin, and then some little unexpected hiccup comes. I'm not saying this is what happened with Diamond. I have no idea. I just know from my experience, I'm like, oh, it'd be awesome to be able to do this. Let's buy this piece of equipment. And then a month later, it's like, I did not see this expense coming. I forgot that I had to pay taxes. And now, like, whatever it is, it's really easy as a small company. You're still fragile. And by and large, in the scheme of companies and all this, Diamond is still quite a small company. They're susceptible to market fluctuations and all this. And so I think who knows what happened with Diamond specifically, but it is really easy to get ahead of yourself, again, speaking from experience, and just not properly prepare for the future. And a little hiccup comes along and it can derail plans. It can derail employee hiring. It can derail the whole company. And so who knows what happened there. But I do like, Mason, as a bit of an aside, at the beginning, you posed the question, and if you're going to get to this, I'll stop talking. You posed the question at the beginning of the podcast about the consumer's responsibility for keeping these companies afloat, or should they, or anything like that, which I think is a really cool question. If we have time, I'd love to come back to that as well.
Yeah, I think that'll be maybe part 3 of our discussion topic today.
Then I'll pass back to you.
Yeah, so I'm looking specifically, to this end at 2 articles that were sort of written about this, and most of it, for the most part, is not editorialized or anything like that. It's just kind of relaying the information as it's sort of known, or however it was posted. So kind of like looking, let's say at the Guitar World posting here that was written by Sam Roach, or Roche, I don't know. We'll let him correct us. But he talks about modernization. Like, one of the things that Solid Gold is going to attempt to do is some modernization of Diamond. And it looks like Diamond actually officially closed a year ago as of December. So I wonder if it's a combination thereof, if there was some market related things that maybe induced the impossibility of being able to continue to make pedals. I also wonder, one of the things that I've talked about in some of our YouTube videos is companies that are relying primarily on using through-hole components will often run into situations where the products reach what's called EOL, an end of life, and you can't procure those parts anymore. And if you can, they come at a really significant markup in cost. And this is why you see a lot of companies that have to start adapting to going to fully surface mount or mostly surface mount based components, because the components that they're used to using in through-hole format just don't exist. And this can be really difficult if you've spent a lot of money in developing an assembly line in different processes and you've hired a process engineer, or you are the process engineer that's created fixtures and all these things for a through-hole assembly, and now you have to convert your products to surface mount. It can be basically like redesigning the product, from scratch almost. Especially if if there's things that may be sensitive. And I'd say for the most part, you can transition to through-hole and get typically tighter tolerances, and you can match the sound if you know what the engineering goals are. And this is sort of a different conversation about, the method versus the implementation when it comes to surface mount versus through-hole. There are, some perverts out there that will, dispute this, but they're also typically not on the engineering side. But in spite of those guys that put toothpaste on pizza, for the most part, you can get the same sound, and there may be some select areas where you need to use through-hole because of a sound difference, but it's rare and infrequent. But I would predict that maybe it was a combination of just like not being able to produce stuff, because a lot of brands just didn't have the money to float themselves for months and months and months during the pandemic, and when China was in a full shutdown, and all of us are reliant upon parts coming from China if we're making pedals, because just not all of the parts can be made in the US or outside of China, that we're all sort of beholden to them. So I'm sure for things like their delays, and using tap tempo and stuff like that, there were components and things like that needed to come from China. It could be that, those parts just weren't being made. They had, tens of thousands of dollars of purchase orders that they couldn't fulfill. And meanwhile, they still have, payroll due every 2 weeks. And that can be really scary. And I even know, Dave Friedman from Friedman Amplification, and even though they're owned by, a larger company called Boutique Amp Distribution, along with other companies in the pedal and amp world, he had said if it weren't, for being sort of owned by this umbrella company that can afford to float, these companies for an extended period of time while they're waiting for parts to come in from, all over the place, or custom stuff to be made or whatever it is, they had the luxury of being able to wait that out. Most companies in their situation would not have the luxury of being able to wait things out. And we just happen to get lucky in that, we buy some of our parts that we, use frequently, like jacks and foot switches and stuff like that. We'll sometimes buy a year's worth, based on what our estimated usage is. So for some of our most common stuff, pandemic shutdown happened in March. We had done all of our ordering, before that, in January. So we had, a cushion that we could rely on of our most commonly used parts. And, if we had to, anything that was specialized, we had. But again, not everybody does it that way. There can be a myriad of reasons why they close. But I think it goes back to this question about, great pedal companies, they can cease to exist. And as Grant said, there can be just like a few that just like market factors that, are just sort of like perfectly bad timing that just screw things up for great companies where it's like they're in a struggle. So I think that should maybe bring us to the conversation topic of like, if you're a consumer, obviously not all this is in your control to be able to help or subsidize your favorite pedal companies. But I want to break for an ad before we get into that. Grant is going to tell you about some of our amazing sponsors that make the show possible every week.
Awesome. Yeah. So I wanted to tell you about two of our sponsors. The first one, I know that we all use this company, is BTPA, or Besttronics. .com.
Shout out Brad.
Thank you, Brad. Whenever I email Bestronics, I get a response from Brad, and he is
so quick.
He's helpful. He's fast, knowledgeable. If he doesn't have something on his website, he's like, I think we can, find this, or we might have it here, or whatever.
He's got a newborn. So, can you believe it?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's got kid number
God
2.
Bless him.
Congrats,
Brad Jr.
The double junior. Nicely done. So Brad at Bestronics and his team, obviously an incredible company. If you need anything pedalboard related, plugs, jacks, cables, custom looms. I just sent someone there last week, actually, because we don't do looms anymore. And I know Bestronics does a whole bunch of stuff for looms related to racks, related to pedal boards, all that type of thing. So get in touch with Bestronics.com and you can use the code, this is a good one, DABEARS, DABEARS.
Chairs.
Sorry,
Chairs.
I'm thinking of the original, guys.
Yeah. You're going Saturday Night Live.
I'm going back to SNL. Chairs, CHAIRS, for 10% off at checkout. Just one more time because I messed it up. DACHAIRS for 10% off at Bestronics. The other company I want to tell you about, another company we all use, is monocreators.com. So they do pedal boards, which we've chatted about in the past, kind of like an angled version and a flat version. And they're kind of really lightweight, strong, and they do a great soft case that actually protects your gear as well, that can go with these pedal boards. Or I know, Mason, you chatted about this quite a bit, as well as Brian has, the double gig bag for your guitars. So you can bring 2 guitars in a soft bag to a gig, and you got your Les Paul for the slash type stuff, and then if you want to switch over quickly to Brad Paisley, you've got your telly there ready to go. So you can check out monocreators.com and you can use the code Chairmen for 10% off your first order at monocreators.com for a high quality piece of gear. So those are the 2 ones I wanted to tell you guys about today.
So good. Thank you for that, Grant. In keeping with that beautiful delivery of those ads for our sponsors, I'm wondering if you want to firstly take on the question around how listeners of the podcast, or viewers if you're watching this on YouTube, can support the companies that they really like, especially the smaller companies that may be more susceptible to these sorts of market effects, and how we might be able to ensure that the companies that we really like and care about continue to survive.
Love it. I think I'd be curious to hear your guys' opinion on my opinion, but my initial thoughts here is that it is not the consumer's responsibility to keep a company going. I think it's the company's responsibility to listen to and understand their consumer, and then create products out of that understanding that really fit the needs. So in saying that, though, and I tell this to our team all the time, that we have the most amazing customers in the fact that they are very understanding. I would like to tell you guys that we are always perfect and never make a mistake. Not the case. And when we do, like, with just the most understanding customers, we tell them, like, sorry about this is what happened. And they are, very on board to help us out and meet us where we're at. But I would say, if you guys have companies or, people you want to support, I think just like a whole lot of other areas in life, it's really good to look into the industry and get a better feel potentially of what the offering is. I know there's a couple of staple companies that do an incredible job, especially on social media, and they create great products. But there are other companies getting started, smaller ones, like Mason said, that might take a little bit more searching to find, but their products are no less incredible. They just aren't quite as established. And I think posting about these companies when you get them, these smaller ones especially, everyone knows about Walrus, everyone knows about Boss and Strymon, but posting about some more smaller boutique companies and why you like the gear, telling your friends about it. I know it seems like, what can I really do? But I can tell you very truthfully that Goodwood, especially at the beginning and still today, is built off of the back of people telling their friends why they like the interface or why they like patch cables and all this type of thing. word of mouth for us is still the most effective form of, I don't want to call it marketing, but getting the word out. And I know it would be very much the same for smaller companies like us, and even like Omilion, absolutely killing it on the social side of things. And it's very fortunate that he also builds a great pedal board. Like he's backing it up with quality work, but without people telling them like, oh, I just got this set up from Omilion, or I just bought this at the Guitar Sanctuary, like go check it out because of XYZ. It's really hard to build a brand without genuine positive feedback from the consumer. So
and he got that shout out from Seal. I mean, that's basically the Super Bowl commercial of Pedalboard advertisements.
Seals the deal right there.
Sealed the deal. Yeah.
Or some would say seal of approval.
Yeah,
we could go all day with this. This is
let's get Seal on the podcast. Let's see what he said. Let's see what he says.
Give him a text. I want to chime in. Yeah, I want to chime in on that. I agree with you. I would say, like, where I don't I don't own a company to where I'm coming out with 5-10 products of these type of pedals, those kind of things. Like that's not like the thing. But if like I don't know how to word it. I had thought about it earlier. Okay. So I would say like if like there's a lot of people, like we all are on the gear hunt looking for stuff and whatnot. And if you have a favorite brand, go buy with them. There's a lot of guys that can't afford to pay full price for gear, and that's fine. That's why people sell used stuff. But like when I have the comment all the time through stuff I sell, they're like, oh, I could spend $30 more and go buy that brand new. I'm like, great, that's great, go do that, support that company, that's totally fine, I understand. So like if you can afford to spend the full price on it, that's great. If it's like, oh, I'm gonna save $20, whatever, that's up to you, that's your money. But yeah, no, I think, it kind of comes down to, the companies listening to clients and to customers, because if you don't and you just start coming out with all these really random things that people are like, I'm never going to use that. Like you're eventually just going to come out with every wish list idea that you've had. And people are like, no, all we wanted was this type of pedal. So, there's a little bit of both sides of kind of like listening to your customers as well as, customers word of mouth, sharing stuff. And that's the great thing about social media, as you guys just said, is like when you get a new pedal, tagging that company gets, like when people tag me and stuff, I'm able to reshare social media stuff, for the store, for me. And it's great because then, my followers will see them, their followers will see it, and people, it starts conversations and, oh, hey, I saw Brad posted about this or Grant posted about this, and ask questions, and it kind of, it starts conversations. So, it's, support every business. And yeah, it's just like you said, Strymon and them, like everyone knows whose boss is, who TC Electronics is, but, give shout outs, credit where, credit is due, kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, before we move on to maybe, I want to kind of put a little bit of my spin on this one. But before I do, I want to hear from one more of our amazing sponsors that make the podcast possible every single week. I'll turn it over to the great Dr. Omilion.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. So, you guys all know that we all utilize Creation Music Company, from plugs and boards and platforms and cases and everything. And if you're listening, you're watching online, you're either intrigued about pedalboard building or DIY, or wanting to learn how to do it yourself, or learn, why we do things the way we do, how we do it. And one of these ways is through Creation, with their plugs, their anchors, zip ties, all the stuff that I use. I got a whole drawer of anchors and zip ties and everything. So they are doing a promotion. It's Chairmen 15 for 15% off all their stuff, except I think some of their customized specialty like elevation boards or something like that. So check them out. They're a great company in Tulsa, Oklahoma. John has been a good friend of mine, and can't speak. I mean, I can only speak the highest praise for all their stuff.
Yep. And what's the website is?
CreationMusicCompany.com.
CreationMusicCompany.com. I mean, 15%. That's 80. What's that? 85% free.
Yeah.
So you can think about it.
Yep.
85% away from free.
That's what it is.
Yep. That's what it is.
Yep.
85% free. Wow.
So I think to wrap up kind of this thread, I agree with Grant that it's not the customer's responsibility to keep the company alive. That's on the company to be able to do that. However, whether you're buying it new or where you're buying it used, as Brian said, there are easy ways to still support the companies that you like in whatever format that you're getting their products or however you're acquiring them. And I do think the most important thing is, again, word of mouth, telling people about it, telling people how much you like it, posting reviews, leaving feedback. These are all things that are really, really important that actually go a long way to helping companies get noticed, have other people talk about them, and it doesn't cost you anything to be able to do that. So I think to the degree to which you like a company and you want to help them, short of buying all of their products, which I don't think is necessarily realistic on the expectation of the company or of the customer, I think talking about the products that you really like and supporting those companies, especially the ones that are small, who are really going to need those reviews more than, again, a Dunlop or a TC Electronic or a Boss, that's really, really helpful to them. And it really goes a long way. And I know that when I was starting out, any sort of review of a product or something like that really, really made my day, because, we invest time and energy in all these things. And we hope that it lands and that people get it. And when they do, it's really rewarding. And I think it's a great thing for people to be able to share those testimonials and be able to get more people in the door. And I think as another summary piece to sort of wrap up today, I think I speak for us all when I say that we're glad that Diamond is going to be making a comeback. I'm grateful that Solid Gold Effects was able to make this acquisition. From their statements, from the articles on guitar.com and I think Guitar Player Magazine, where this was published, they said that there's going to be maybe some amount of a gap where they sort of do the retooling. And again, I talked about how I thought maybe some of what was precipitated was just that they just didn't have the parts that they needed, just don't exist in the formats with which they were making all their PCBs and stuff like that. So this is probably what's happening, is they're modernizing, making them surface mount. Again, that doesn't mean that they're going to be bad or sound different. The same objective can be achieved, and don't put toothpaste on your pizza and poison the well by telling people otherwise. Again, this is a method. This is an execution issue if there is a difference in sound, not a method issue. And this is well validated by very gifted engineers from Jean Sir on down would agree with this statement. And I think that, again, there are great companies that have great stuff that maybe we haven't heard of that often die on the vine. And I think that it's always exciting to me to discover new and interesting boutique pedals that most people haven't heard of, because we don't know who's going to be the next Klon Centaur or who's going to be the next JHS pedals that's going to sort of take over the industry. And they're out there right now, and we could be checking out their stuff and supporting them and be on the ground floor of the next big thing. So I always encourage people to experiment, to try the unknown brand sometimes, and you will often be pleasantly surprised, because there are some brilliant designers out there, and I think that just the level is just increasing and getting better and better and better and better in terms of the quality of products, in terms of the consistency and the sound. And I really hope that people will, take some of the discussion topics here to heart and consider ways that you can support the companies that you like, and how you might get out there and try some new stuff that you haven't heard about. And maybe you'll be the one to break, the next Klon to the guitar world. So with that, Chairman, I will sign off for today, and I'm looking forward to trying the first solid gold era version of a diamond compressor in memory lane.
Absolutely.
Me too.
All right, guys. See ya.
See ya.